back hurts. I hurt my back a few days ago, and I gotta take it easy for a few days. So that's what I'm doing now. That's why I'm here doing a photo recap. So without further ado, welcome to my photo recap for March, April, and May. It's been a little while since my last recap. I made a video recently that was like a life update. And the reason that I haven't done a recap in a while is because life has been a little chaotic lately. Let me just explain. For the last 5 or so months, I've been working full-time on this reality home renovation show, which has me traveling to all sorts of places across the entire country. It sounds exciting, and it is, but it also means working nonstop most of the time, leaving very little room to explore, to take photos, but still I managed to sneak in a few shots here and there, some while on the job and a couple while I was back home here in New York. Oh, and I guess speaking of New York, there's another pretty big change, which you could tell by looking behind me. I moved apartments. After a few years in Brooklyn, I finally made the jump over to Queens. I won't get into why that is, but yeah, because of work, travel, and this move, it's been tough to keep up with my usual pace of creating these videos and other videos for this channel. Honestly, I'm shooting a lot less film these days. I have fewer opportunities to dive into photography like I used to, and it's been a little bit of a bummer, but I'm kind of slowly trickling back into getting into the swing of things. But hey, that's life, right? You roll with it, you adapt, you do the best you can. And so today I'm excited to get back into the groove and share my 5 favorite photos from the past 3 months. That's March, April, and May. So without further ado, these are the images that stood out to me amidst all of the chaos of the last few months. So let's take a closer look. But first, let's take a stroll over to the kitty corner and see what my cats have been up to for the past few months. That is always delightful, and I'm never going to stop doing it. But for now, let's get on to our first photo, which is this. This photo was shot on Ektar 100 in the Nikon F3. So this is a photo of a poster that someone left outside to be thrown away. The poster itself is of the Manhattan skyline in New York City. Pretty old one, actually, since the Twin Towers are visible right there. What makes this photo stand out is the spray painted text on the poster in bold, bright yellow letters. It says, "For sale." And I like this photo for a couple of reasons. First, there's the context and the subject matter. There's this vague humor to it, almost a commentary. I'm not super in tune with New York City or New York State politics, but you could read into it as a statement about the sort of commercialization of New York, or maybe something more abstract than that. Let me know in the comments what you read into this. But that little layer of interpretation gives the photo this subtle edge that I find really compelling. And then there's the aesthetic side of it. The image is so angular with the poster propped up against this crosswalk sign right next to this grimy trash bin on a weathered sidewalk. And the yellow spray paint really pops out against the backdrop of the serene sunset lit skyline in the poster. The whole thing just feels like a mix of chaos and beauty, and I just sort of love that tension. Lately, I've been trying to lean into capturing moments that feel a little bit more whimsical or lighthearted, photos that celebrate the brighter parts of life. That's just where I am right now, both in my work and personally. For a long time, I drifted into this more self-serious, anxious, even cynical place, but I'm working on reconnecting with the more jovial, carefree version of myself. And this photo embodies that kind of energy that I want to bring back into my art. It feels playful. It feels thoughtful. And on a technical note, this photo was taken on the Nikon F3 using Ektar 100. And I have to say, Ektar has really become one of my favorite film stocks to shoot with. It gives these sharp, vibrant images that just jump off the frame. I first fell in love with Ektar after a trip to Atlanta last year. I think it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, but it's been a staple ever since for me. In fact, you'll see a few more Ektar photos on this list. But yeah, that's this photo. Let's move on to the next one. This photo was taken on Ektar 100 in the Nikon F3. So this photo was taken earlier this year, either in Michigan or Minnesota. I'm not sure which one, but I'm leaning towards Michigan, probably around late February, early March. It's a simple shot of this snow-covered tree with a clear blue sky as the backdrop, and at first glance, it might not seem like much, but what caught my eye here was the interplay of light and shadow. I mean, the snow rests in soft organic patches on the branches, creating these striking spots of brightness that contrast against the darker green and brown tones of the tree. The lighting in this image gives a painterly quality. It feels as though the tree is being evenly illuminated by some massive unseen flash. And this sort of style reminds me of a certain aesthetic that was and might still be kind of trendy on Instagram, but it was trendy a while back, I know that for sure. And it's these outdoor portraits that are taken with flash, usually shot upward, so the sky is behind someone. And it creates this surreal, almost flat look that makes the subject feel like it's been cut out of a magazine and pasted into a scene. And here that effect happens naturally with the sun, and it makes the tree feel like it's blending into the sky in a way that's both jarring and, in my opinion, kind of captivating. That being said, there are a couple of things I wish were different. I think that the image could benefit from deeper shadows on the tree to create more contrast and to make the snow really pop. I also wonder how it would look with a completely blank blue sky behind it, no clouds at all, or maybe the opposite, with some dramatic textured clouds to add more complexity to the composition. But in the end, it's not a groundbreaking shot compositionally, but I like it for the lighting and the way that it plays with depth or lack thereof. It's a good example of how simple scenes can evoke a certain mood or aesthetic when the conditions are just right. This photo was taken on Ektar 100 in the Nikon F3. So this photo was taken near my old apartment in Brooklyn, just down the street from this sort of like industrial hub. I never really knew what exactly went on there, some sort of manufacturing maybe, but it was always bustling with these large trucks hauling heavy loads like steel I-beams. But scattered amongst all of this machinery were these bright red drums that were often lined with high visibility reflector strips. I'm not entirely sure what purpose these drums served. They might have been used as safety markers, but they always seemed to just sit there on the curb, not doing much. They reminded me of those like rain barrels that you would see in the countryside, or probably more accurately, oil barrels. What made this particular drum stand out was obviously the graffiti scrawled across it. Someone, likely using a graffiti marker, maybe a crimp marker, had written "whelp" in bold white letters, and the word feels like a shrug in text form, a single syllable that perfectly encapsulates resignation. To me, it's kind of a reaction you have when the universe is just throwing a wrench in your plans. Like, you could rage against it, or you could just throw up your hands and say, "Welp." It's a small act of surrender, but also a subtle acknowledgement of life's randomness. Visually, the photo is all about contrast. The vibrant red of the drum just dominates the frame, while the white graffiti practically jumps off the surface. Add in the neon yellow-green reflector strip and subtle grays and blues in the background, and you have a palette that feels both industrial and surprisingly dynamic. What's interesting is how this ties into this Bauhaus-inspired color scheme, red, yellow, and blue. I've noticed this combination pops up a lot in mid-20th century films, particularly in the cinematography of international movies from the 60s and 70s. Directors and cinematographers would often place these three colors, red, yellow, and blue, prominently within a single shot, oftentimes throughout an entire movie. And it's something that stuck with me as I've worked on my own photography. It's just sort of a reminder of how a simple, deliberate choice can make an image feel balanced and striking. This photo doesn't have deep narrative or complex composition, but what it does have is personality, in my opinion. The bold colors and that small, cheeky word, "whelp," capture a certain energy and an attitude that I just kind of love. Sometimes it's not about some grand story, but the little moments of serendipity that we find out on the street. This photo was taken on Kodak Gold in the Nikon F3. So like I just said, this photo was taken on Kodak Gold on the Nikon F3, which I actually have right here. And this was taken during a recent project in Virginia Beach. It's a great example of how high contrast and vibrant colors can just carry an image, like I was just saying, even when there's almost no contextual story behind it. On the surface, there's not much happening here. It's just a bright yellow wall with a blue door, a sliver of blue sky peeking out in the top right, and a stretch of gray-brown sidewalk at the bottom. And yet, I keep coming back to this photo. It almost demands attention with its bold, graphic simplicity. And what makes this work for me are the little details that break up the clean color blocks. There's this white patch that's above the door, as though someone painted over something in a rush. It's a minor imperfection, but it adds this sort of organic element to an otherwise highly structured composition. And then there's this strip of white along the roofline separating the yellow from the blue sky. And I'm not sure that the image would feel as balanced if it transitioned directly from yellow to blue. It's this little touch of white that gives the scene a little bit of breathing room. The color contrast is another major strength. Yellow and blue are complementary colors, and here they play off each other perfectly. The yellow wall just dominates here. It's bright and it's almost overwhelming, but the blue door and the sky ground the image and it provides a sense of balance. Even the slightly tilted angle, which I shot kind of intentionally, I think, gives it a dynamic feel. It creates a sense of movement and allows the blue sky to echo the blue of the door. And this photo doesn't have a story per se, but that's part of its charm. It's just a bold, colorful image that pops. And sometimes photography doesn't need to overthink itself. It can simply be about appreciating striking color and clean geometric designs. And for me, this is a small study of how simplicity and contrast can work together to create something that's visually arresting. This photo was taken on Kodak Gold in the Nikon F3. So this photo was also taken during my time in Virginia Beach, and it's one of my favorites from that entire trip. It kind of happened by chance. Me and my crew were heading out to grab some coffee one morning when I noticed this dog sitting in this driver's seat of this van. It was staring out the window with an expression I can only describe as pure human-like annoyance. And obviously I couldn't help myself. I quickly grabbed my camera and took the shot. I didn't linger too long or make a big whole production of it because I didn't want to risk an awkward confrontation with the dog's owner. Some people aren't thrilled when you photograph their cars, and I understand, but that just meant that I had to work quickly. Out of the two shots I took, this one stood out to me because it shows the entire front of the van, giving us a bit more context outside of the dog. You can see how the dashboard is decorated with these little trinkets like a hula dancer, a rubber duck, other little curiosities hanging from the mirror. There's even a GoPro mount on the dash that I only really noticed when I was reviewing the photo for this video. But the real star, of course, is the dog sitting upright in the driver's seat. It gazes out the window with its wonderfully human-like expression. And to me, it looks like it's saying, "Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee." The morning light in the background of the image adds to the charm. It was around 7 or 7:30 in the morning, so maybe the dog, like the rest of us, had just woken up. And there's this sort of grumpy humanity in its posture and its expression that I find just endlessly amusing and endearing. This photo actually reminds me a lot of Elliot Erwitt's work, particularly his book Dogs, which I actually have a copy of right here. And I had a bookmark in there. There's a bunch of photos of dogs in it. It's basically just a collection of whimsical, funny, and deeply relatable photos of dogs in all kinds of human-like situations. Elliot Erwitt's work highlights the deep connection that we share with our pets and how their behaviors and expressions often mirror our own. And I feel like this image taps into that same idea, that uncanny sense of seeing a reflection of our own humanity in another species. And what I love most about this photo is how it captures a moment of coexistence. It's not just about a dog or the van or the trinkets on the dashboard. It's about the quiet marvel of sharing the world with another creature. There's something humbling and wonderful about realizing that we're all in this thing together, cohabitating and finding joy in these fleeting, everyday moments. This little scene, a dog waiting in a van while its owner gets coffee, is one of those small, overlooked interactions that reminds me of how interconnected life can be. And that's going to do it for me this month. I hope you all enjoyed my photos. It's been a while since I've done this, so I kind of felt like I had to relearn how to do this whole thing. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that. Let me know what you thought of my photos. I'm going to share a few more photos from the last 3 months that I took that I think could have maybe landed on this list, but didn't quite make the cut. I do hope to be shooting more film in the future and be able to get these videos out regularly once again. But life oftentimes finds a way of keeping me occupied. And so that might mean that I have to slow down on making these videos and shooting film. But you know what? So be it. Hopefully you're all still there when I come back. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on the channel. I've been Josh. I'll see you all next time.